Almost every country in the world is in debt. The United States has passed $38 trillion in debt. The European Union carries around $14 trillion. Japan is close to $9 trillion. Even oil-rich Saudi Arabia or export powerhouses like Germany and China are heavily in debt. So a strange question comes up. If everyone is in debt, who is the money owed to? This is where things get interesting. Debt isn't just a burden, it's the skeleton of the modern world. Wars, crises, economic booms, and collapses, all of them sit on top of this invisible system of debt. And when you look closely enough, you run into an uncomfortable truth. The world isn't really in debt to one single place. In many ways, it's in debt to itself. But that doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. Today, total global debt has passed $315 trillion, almost 3 times the size of the world economy. To understand how we got here, we have to go back long before credit cards and digital payments, back to a time of war. In 1694, England was at war with France and running out of money. The king turned to merchants and made a deal. Give me money now, and I'll pay you regular interest in the future, backed by taxes. To manage this arrangement, the Bank of England was created. This was a turning point. For the first time, the state could spend money it didn't yet have. In return, lenders received something incredibly powerful, a promise from the government, a promise that could be bought, sold, and traded. This was the birth of the government bond. France adopted the idea, the Netherlands refined it. The United States used it to finance its independence and its expansion west. Debt was no longer a sign of weakness, it became a sign of credibility. If a state could borrow, it could rule. Empires once conquered land to extract gold. Now they issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield moved onto the balance sheet. Fast forward to today, and debt has become the world's dominant product. The U.S. owes $38 trillion. Japan owes over $9 trillion. Global debt grows by about $1 trillion every few months. Every country borrows, every bank lends, and through taxes, savings, and pensions, every one of us is part of the system. So who actually holds U.S. debt? Out of that $38 trillion, about half is publicly held. Most of it is owned by American institutions, banks, pension funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve itself. Foreign holders own around $9 trillion. Japan is the largest, followed by China. But China's share is only about 2% of the total. So when people say, America owes China, that's technically true, but it's a tiny part of the picture. In reality, most of America's debt is owed to itself. The government issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The central bank buys many of them back and creates new money in the process. Taxes pay the interest, which flows back into retirement funds. The system loops endlessly, like a spinning wheel. And this isn't unique to the U.S. Japan lends to America. America lends through the IMF. Europe lends through the World Bank. Developing countries store their reserves in Western bonds, sending money back into the same system. Everyone holds everyone else's IOUs. It's like a massive poker table where every player borrowed chips from the next. The game only works as long as no one stands up. The real power, though, sits with the markets. Behind government bonds are massive funds, central banks, and institutional investors. They decide who gets cheap credit and who struggles to survive. When confidence disappears, currencies collapse and governments fall. At the center of it all are central banks. They don't just manage debt, they create it. Every time they buy government bonds, new money is created. One balance sheet's liability becomes another's asset. That's why there is no such thing as debt-free money. Every dollar represents a promise somewhere else. For decades, this system has survived on confidence. No one expects governments to fully pay off their debt. They just expect interest to be paid and the system to keep running. But when confidence breaks, we've seen what happens. Greece, Argentina, Sri Lanka. Debt crises bring austerity, unemployment, and political collapse. And here's the strange part. Even after collapse, the system starts again. New loans replace old ones. Because in the modern world, debt isn't designed to be paid off. It's designed to be rolled over. Governments don't plan to eliminate their debt. That isn't a secret, it's policy. The U.S. will never bring its debt to zero. Japan has been rolling over its debt for decades, and investors still stay. Government debt is seen as the safest asset on Earth. In fact, imagine if the U.S. somehow paid off every dollar it owed. Global markets would lose their safest asset, money supply would shrink, deflation and chaos would follow, paying off the debt would break the system. So governments do the opposite. They keep issuing debt, carefully, steadily. Debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism itself. When politicians talk about eliminating the debt, they're selling an illusion. The goal isn't to remove debt, it's to keep people believing in it. But this belief doesn't benefit everyone equally. Saying we owe it to ourselves only tells half the story. Interest payments flow upward from workers and taxpayers to investors and institutions. Debt isn't just a transfer between countries, it's a transfer between classes. That's why rising debt and rising inequality go hand in hand. If this sounds familiar, it should. It's the same story at a larger scale. From the households to nations, from nations to the world. No single actor is to blame. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It's all of them, and it's us. Debt used to mean chains. Today it means balance. But if that balance ever breaks, if confidence disappears, the illusion ends. And we're reminded what debt really is, a promise that can't be kept forever.